All right, we're back again. Finally got the camera fixed. We are back in business. The next story I want to tell you about is about the divine artist who took a magical journey and was able to meet all 250 members of the Glass Bead Game. So I wanted to go through that and what he discovered. Um, um, This is a magical and mystical journey that the divine artist took, and he was able to rank them and meet them in the order of their importance to the Glass Bead Game. So the first person that the divine artist met was Plato, and Plato was able to express to him his theory of forms and ideas about perfection. And this applied not only to shapes and mathematics and the idea, the transcendent idea of perception, of perfection that transcended an imperfect world, that everything would be measured against these perfect ideas, including man. And what's fascinating about this is that in the real world, shapes such as a circle is imperfect, numbers are imperfect, mathematics doesn't completely fit together. Man on this earth does not have the perfect qualities, but he's measured against the ideal of a perfect, transcendent, perfect man. And that's what's really fascinating about Plato. He developed the academy where they were all able to study the metaphysics and these ideas. The academy is very similar to Aristotle's Lyceum, today's university system, especially philosophy departments, metaphysics departments, and also Castelia, which was in the Glass Bead Game, where they were able to study this perfection by merging all of the greatest ideas from metaphysics and religion and art and mathematics into one perfect reality. So the second person that the divine artist met, and second most important person currently in the Glass Bead Game, is Hermann Hesse. He wrote the Magister Ludi, which is the master of the game, and also stood for the Glass Bead Game. And this is where Joseph Knecht was able to go and study music and art and mathematics to create this ultimate perfect reality. Hermann Hesse wrote a lot of other books as well. Siddhartha, who also was on a journey and pilgrimage much like the divine artist, and also Journey to the East, Steppenwolf, Narcissus and Goldman. And a lot of these characters were always seeking this immortality and perfection that doesn't seem like it can be attained through a limited mind. So Hermann Hesse was the second, is currently the second most important person in the Glass Bead Game. Jean-Paul Sartre has moved up to the third position. I've made about 150 videos here on this channel, and oddly enough, Jean-Paul Sartre has the most hits of all the views. I currently have 26 subscribers. I've had about 7,000 views. And Jean-Paul Sartre, that particular video has gotten the most likes and most views. It has about 1,400 views. And it's interesting, it was one of the first videos that I did when I converted to this channel. I also have other videos under Metaphysics of Being, which I also did videos on Friedrich Nietzsche and Ayn Rand, and the book Metaphysics of Being, which I wrote, talking about this imperfection in the real perceived world and how this perfect state of being um, transcends this world. That's what this book, Metaphysics of Being, was about. Well, the book or the video I did on John Paul Sartre was really a summary of his long book that was about 800 pages, Being and Nothingness, and it just summarizes his three states of being, and they were, again, being for others, and that's the real world in which we live in, this deterministic world of cause and effect, and where we perceive things. And then there is the being for itself, which is the mind, and that's this somewhat immaterial state of qualia where we experience the being for others, the real deterministic world, and the real world. And then it's in that second state of being, in the mind, that we're able to think about or understand or conceive of the nothingness, the being in itself, which is our eternal spirit and eternal freedom that lies below this. So there's the three states of being, this the divine I, which Friedrich Hölderlin talks about a lot, and Johann Fichte, and I'll get to them. This eternal spirit that exists, being in itself, being for others, being the mind that can conceive of the eternal spirit, and also the limited spirit, the being for others, that determinist cause and effect self that lives in the real world. So John Paul Sartre's jumped up to number 3. So number 4 is Johann Fichte. He lived in the late 1700s and he came to prominence when he wrote something. He met Martin Heidegger, and he wrote something about the critique of pure reason and tried to expand on it. Martin Heidegger, in Critique of Pure Reason, claimed that our limited selves could never understand the transcendent thing in itself. That was this perfect state of being. So we were always viewing this this limited, imperfect perception. And that's all in the Critique of Pure Reason. Well, Johann Fichte wrote something extremely impressive to Martin Heidegger, and it got published under an unknown author. Heidegger got it published for him, and people thought it was part of Heidegger's work, his 3 critiques. And as it turned out, it was Johann Fichte. He then rose to prominence, received a professorship at a university, and later was kicked out. His main thing was that he talked about the divine I, the eternal divine I, which is the foundation of all being, and this precedes everything else. So this was a very important switch from Heidegger, where you had the subject and object being separate and being perceived, and Johann Fichte talked about this divine I, which was essential, eternal, and preceded everything else. So this is almost like a solipsistic view of the self preceding everything else. And this is really interesting how this ties into quantum mechanics, how we view reality, and through the quantum wave collapse. And Friedrich Hölderlin talks about this divine absolute I as well, that precedes everything else, all of reality. So that was just amazing. He ultimately was kicked out of this professorship because they thought he was an atheist. And then he went on and continued to do his work. He's really not very well known in the history of metaphysics and philosophy, although Friedrich Nietzsche took an interest in him around 1940. Moving on to number 5, George Berkeley. His main thing was to be is to be perceived. So again, this ties to the John Paul Sartre, the being for itself, perceiving the being for others, the real deterministic world that we live in. And the interesting twist that Tony Magna pointed out to me the other day was in George Berkeley, that the real world eternally exists because it's always in the mind of God. Yeah, so that's really an important point. And Johann Fichte, in his Divine Eye, believed that the Divine Eye merged with the mind of man with the mind of God, and that's the ultimate reunion. Number 6, Alan Watts. Studied Eastern religion, Eastern mysticism, had just a lot of books. He wrote about 20 books, and in a way I kind of model myself after Alan Watts in a way, making videos, writing books. I've written 5 books, and just this study of metaphysics and reality, and why is there anything at all, and some of the biggest questions in the world. And Alan Watts did a lot of that. He had a really interesting quote that he would like sit on a mountaintop and think, what about the possibility of there being nothing at all, and almost like upon your death you become a nothing. And I've included this as the subtitle of the last book, The Journey of Qualia, Imagine the Possibility of There Being Nothing at All, which is really interesting because there is something, the life that we live, and this goes back to every moment and every day is a sacrament, and we have to appreciate every single day and every moment because they're limited. And Ayn Rand talked about this, is that our perceived moments are limited. If we're going to die and become a nothing someday, every day is the Super Bowl, every day is the climbing of Mount Everest, the composing of that symphony. Number 7 is Rene Descartes. Came up with I think, therefore I am. Again, this goes along the lines of George Berkeley, to be is to be perceived. Also goes along the lines of Johann Fichte and Friedrich Hölderlin as this divine eye. And Rene Descartes came up with this mind-body dualism, that the body and the material world is all of that is limited with extension and is perceived. And separate from that is the mind, which is eternal and without extension, almost a nothingness that you can never quite find or get to the bottom of it. And that's that eternal self that lies below or separate in some way from the perceived world. Number 8 is Friedrich Hölderlin, and I've really been interested in Hölderlin and Fichte a lot lately. I recently saw a hour-and-a-half video by a professor, Edward Kantarian, and I sent him an email and just said how much I enjoyed his video on Friedrich Hölderlin, talking about the absolute I and the divine I that preceded everything else. Friedrich Hölderlin was a German poet and was kind of like the foundation of German idealism. Later, well, you had Kant and Friedrich Schelling and all the German idealists. F.H. Bradley is so important. So I've really been digging into Friedrich Hölderlin. Oddly enough, he wrote a book called The Death of Empedocles, who in 500 BC jumped into Mount Etna in Sicily to prove his immortality. Empedocles thought he was like a godlike person, and was important in the early Greek type thinking. Number 9 is a very unique guy, Andre Gregory. Very few people would know him. He was an artist and a playwright, and he did the movie, my favorite movie of all time, My Dinner with Andre. And what it is about creating your own perfect reality. And he has this dinner with a Wallace Shawn, and Wally just thinks he's nuts. Andre Gregory traveled the world and did all of these unique things that made him feel alive. They were very unique things, like climbing. He didn't do this, but climbing Mount Everest would be an example of this, where you lose yourself and you become one with reality. You lose a sense of time. And Andre Gregory did a lot of these unique things, and almost felt in a godlike state often. And there was a line in there, I could never live in my life, but I could always live in my art. And I just love Andre Gregory just for that movie. Number 10, 10th ranked in the current Glass Bead Game of who the divine artist has met, and Mahatma Gandhi. And he was such an important person. Just his theory of nonviolence is almost a higher state of man, and an altruistic view of existence in complete dedication to the service of God and to man. And he was ultimately killed for this. And somebody once said that every time somebody talks about love, they kill him, like a Jesus, and a Gandhi, and a Martin Luther King. This really freaks out the world for some reason. Yeah, so Mahatma Gandhi is absolutely an amazing person. Interesting enough, I had a painting made recently with 8 or 10 guys in this painting of a Glass Bead Game, which I used for the cover of this last book, The Journey to Qualia. And Gandhi was one of the guys on there. The other ones that were on this painting were Parmenides, Gandhi, Hermann Hesse, George Berkeley, Ayn Rand, Zeno, Beethoven, and those are the ones I can think of right away. But that was the actual painting that is used for the cover of that book, and it really turned out well. Number 11 is kind of a unique guy. Most people wouldn't think of him as being such a high ranking in the Glass Bead Games. Many people wouldn't even know him. Leo Biscaglia. His theory of love is love being the only answer to existence. There's a lot of evil and suffering in the world, and he acknowledged that, but he said through the love and the sharing with other people, it gives life meaning. And I just love his speeches, and he was just loved by his followers. He was a professor at USC, and just in the education department, and ultimately just started giving seminars and speeches throughout the world, I guess, or on campus there, on just the topic of love, and people absolutely love him. He's just fantastic. My sister actually was able to see him speak before he died about 20 or 30 years ago. Number 12 is Zeno. Zeno is very important in all of the books, especially Metaphysics of Being, because it talks about paradox. His paradox of existence, really. He had paradoxes of motion, the Achilles paradox, where you couldn't catch a moving object. The fast Achilles couldn't catch the tortoise, because of what's called an infinite regress, and then also the you couldn't reach a stationary object because you always have to reach one half of the distance to the point before you reach your ultimate destination. There was the stadium paradox, and also the arrow paradox. And all of this talks about discreteness and continuity, and that you can never get to the bottom of this through our logical system, through our mathematical system. This proves that our minds are limited and that we have to view the world in a discrete way to perceive the reality in which we live in. So Zeno's paradoxes are just absolutely fascinating, have not been resolved to this day by calculus or any other means. As a matter of fact, calculus, which only approaches a limit, and due to the infinite regress, actually supports Zeno's paradoxes. So the bottom line of that really is that the world we live in is discrete. Everything is concepts, discrete thoughts, and that's the world that we live in. Number 13 is Parmenides. Really, he should be up top, but there's so many great people. Plato wrote about Parmenides, and that's one of my favorite pieces ever written. Parmenides believed in this oneness, this immutable, transcendent oneness, and that is just absolutely fantastic. Zeno and Parmenides were kind of in the same school of thought, that the world we live in is this great paradox, and if you expand on this, like, why does evil exist? Why is there anything at all? It's just kind of this absurd paradox that there's anything. And Parmenides, with his immutable oneness, kind of ties back to this divine I, or state of being that precedes and transcends everything else. So John Paul Sartre, Fichte, Berkeley, Alan Watts, Descartes, Hölderlin, this absolute transcendent, absolute divine I, state of being which transcends everything else, is really what this Parmenides talks about. And he kind of talks about, too, about just the discussion of something and nothing, and a lot of Metaphysics of Being, my first book, was kind of an interpretation of Parmenides. Number 14 is Friedrich Nietzsche, and he believed in Overman, and that was this, again, this ideal state of existence, ideal state of man, completely free. And the interesting thing about his is that it's within the world, that it's within the world of evil and suffering, and through the use of power of the mind, that man can achieve his highest self. And that is the state of Overman and Superman. Overman being over the limitedness of man that's been kind of conditioned throughout history, that you can, through the use of all means at your disposal, become this ultimate, your highest self, your highest potential self, and that's the state of Overman. Number 15 is Ayn Rand. She's hated by most people throughout history. She's shunned by our current university system. Many of her works are not considered philosophical works, but they're very detailed. Her theory of objectivism, that there is this objective, highest moral self, and this includes self-interest to become your highest self, is really fantastic. Ayn Rand probably is number one for somebody that actually wants to succeed in this world, in the real world. She did not believe in God, did not believe in life after death, believed in every moment was this sacrament and should be appreciated and productive on this earth. 16 is Heraclitus. He believed in change. Eternal change is the one constant in the world. So that's a play on words and a paradox. And this ties into like the elusiveness of the ultimate state of being. And he had the famous quote, you can't step in the same river twice. And that there's this, through the flow of time, there is this change. It's always different. Even yourself is always different moment from moment. And it's this elusive change that makes the life interesting. Number 17 is Buddha. Who Buddhism was founded, believed in really a nothingness, did not believe in God, but believed in like this total acceptance of reality. It is what it is, but at the foundation of it, it's almost like an absurdity, a nothingness, lack of meaning, like a nihilism almost, but in a very profound way. Number 18, F.H. Bradley was a German idealist, believed in absolute truth without paradox and without relativity. And he tried to do this in Appearance of Reality, and it was one of the main books that I tried to use in Metaphysics of Being to come at what this absolute truth is, this eternal truth. I think he failed ultimately in his Appearance and Reality, but he gave a good attempt at it. And in the Metaphysics of Being, almost like a summary of that, came up with that really the concept of nothing is the only absolute truth there could ever be, because it's without extension. And anything with extension is relative to something else. So in that book, I tried to point out that that could never be absolute. It's always relative to something else. Number 19 is Democritus, who wrote in 500 BC. And he wrote about atomism and void, and his writings are very interesting to read, especially considering it's 500 BC. So he's really kind of the father of the view of reality that we have today through science and our discreteness that we ultimately came up with through Max Planck and the collapse of the wave function, that there is this discrete something that we experience in our reality. And he also talked about the void outside of that as well, which was real interesting. His mentor was Leucippus, who only talked about the atomism and not about the void. Leucippus believed in just this, if something is everywhere, whereas Democritus talked about that there was a something and a nothing, which is kind of what makes his writings very interesting. Number 20 is Michelangelo, and I was able to go to Rome and see his works. His Sistine Chapel and his Pieta and his Statue of David are absolutely fantastic. The Sistine Chapel, which took 4 years to do, is probably the greatest achievement of all time ever by man. After 2 years, he ran away and went into hiding because he didn't think he could finish. It was so difficult to do. But the Catholic Church tracked him down and forced him to finish the work, and took 2 more additional years. Basically, they threatened him that they were either going to imprison him for life or even kill him possibly unless he finished the Sistine Chapel. So he basically was a slave, um, and had to finish the work. So just Michelangelo is absolutely amazing. Number 21, Miguel de Cervantes was a warrior in around 1200 AD and ultimately became a poet. And I don't know a lot about him, but just this idea of the warrior poet um, really catches my imagination. And there's a great picture, a statue of him that might be in Greece, where he's pointing up to the heavens. And I used it as the very last page of my book, The Journey to Qualia. That picture of him pointing up at the heavens, I thought it was a powerful finish. Number 22 is Gottfried Leibniz, and he believed in monads. He tried to get at the ultimate state of being, and it was this monads, which was eternal, an eternal nothingness without extension that was also subjective, and that these were the foundations of all of being. And his monadology is absolutely fascinating, that he was able to come up with this in 500 years ago. Also was one of the two people, along with Newton, separately, to come up with calculus. So Leibniz is absolutely fascinating as well. So let's stop with that, and we'll pick up with another video after I upload this one, and we'll continue on with the I'm going to go through all 250 members of the Glass Bead Game that the divine artist has met.